Welcome back. It's going to have to be a very fast video. Got a lot of stuff to get out this time. Just going to jump straight into it. Alright, 13th of April. 14 governors prepare state and militia defenses to be ready for Obama's rogue federal forces. Obama, fearing a revolution against him by the states, has moved swiftly by nationalizing nearly all National Guard forces in multiple states: Georgia, Alabama, Kansas, Minnesota, Tennessee, Virginia, Louisiana, South Carolina, to name a few. The governors of the great states of Alabama, Georgia, Louisiana, South Carolina, Tennessee, Texas, and Virginia still have under their command and control the state defense forces to go against the U.S. federal forces should the need arise. Also important to note, there are no U.S. laws prohibiting National Guard troops from also joining their state's defense forces. This dilemma occurred during the Civil War, with many citizen soldiers choosing to serve their states instead of the federal government, which is what will happen again. Former U.S. diplomat send U.S. ground troops to Ukraine. Former U.S. diplomat and member of the Council on Foreign Relations, James Jeffrey, is calling for U.S. ground troops to be injected into the brewing civil war in Ukraine. Jeffrey is a visiting fellow at the Washington Institute for Near East Policy, a Beltway think tank controlled by the American Israel Public Affairs Committee and associated with the neocon wing of the Republican Party. Yeah, I'm not going to read too much into these guys. There's just so much good to get. You guys can read them all. Floating sewer skyscraper rids the world's oceans of plastic while generating clean energy. That's pretty cool. Seawater is a self-supported hydroelectric power station that can generate electricity using seawater at the same time that it cleans up plastic waste. The huge structure separates plastic particles and fluids, recycles seawater, and releases it back into the ocean. The structure receives energy from the sun, ocean, and plastics, and moves slowly from one polluted area to the next. The project received an honorable mention in the 2014 Evolo skyscraper competition. That's cool. We need more of them. Definitely more of them. This one was interesting. A weird black ring appeared in the sky in England and then disappeared. A 16-year-old girl saw a giant black ring in the sky above England and captured it on video. After 3 minutes of floating around like a cloud, the black ring disappeared completely. So far, experts have no idea what it is. A lot of people reckon it's just a smoke ring, but like, okay. Here's the video. Kind of just sits there. But that's a big smoke ring. If that's a smoke ring, I don't know. I'm on the fence on this one. You tell me. ABC News. Queensland public servants linked to drug syndicate spanning 3 states, police say. Queensland government employees are among those involved in a drug operation spanning 3 states. Detectives from Queensland, New South Wales, and Victoria have been investigating the group for the past year, seizing cannabis, amphetamines, cash, stolen goods, real estate, and other assets valued at more than $13 million. Officers have also seized more than $200,000 in cash. Of course the cops are involved with the drugs. The government's the ones that give the drugs out to the cartels. Duh. It's official. Russia completely bans GMOs. Prime Minister Dmitry Medvedev recently announced that Russia will no longer import GMO products, stating that the nation has enough space and enough resources to produce organic food. Man, I'm beginning to like Russia more. If the Americans like to eat GMO products, let them eat it then. We don't need to do that. We have enough space and opportunities to produce organic food. Medvedev. Yeah, and even China's rejecting shipments of GMO food from the US, like tons. National Geographic. Fukushima considered world's worst nuclear accident. Physician, Fukushima remains a global health concern. Kaku, it's so bad they don't even have a picture of melted core. The agony is undeniable. Yeah, well, I don't think people even think of this anymore. It's the worst nuclear accident. Just National Geographic saying it now. It's been going on for 3 years. They're still not doing anything about it, and it's just leaking, and leaking, and leaking, and leaking for 3 years straight. Former Australian Foreign Minister confirms that the Israel lobby controls Australia's foreign policy. Former Australian Minister Bob Carr recently confirmed that this is indeed the case, observing that Australia's foreign policy, particularly with regard to the Middle East, was being virtually dictated by organised Jury Carr, Australia's Labor Party Foreign Minister from March 2012 to September 2013, made his comments while promoting his new book, Bob Carr, Diary of a Foreign Minister. Speaking to the Australian Broadcasting Corporation, Carr hit out at the pro-Israel lobby in Melbourne, saying it wielded extraordinary influence on Australia's foreign policy during his time in Julia Gillard's cabinet. I'm pretty sure a lot of people would have heard about this one by now. New police cameras to catch naughty drivers. Trialling a new long-range camera have already caught a Victorian driver for not wearing a seatbelt from 700 meters away. The Ranger technology captures a driver up to 700 meters away, and we can clearly see through the lens if that person is on the mobile phone or they're not wearing a seatbelt. Awesome. More revenue raising. Whooping cough vaccine loses its effectiveness. This is Brisbane Times, by the way, April 14th. The bacteria that causes deadly whooping cough has mutated to more easily evade its vaccine, potentially putting hundreds of thousands of children at risk. Experts fear a new booster shot may be needed for 18-month-olds and say it is more important than ever that babies are immunized as early as possible to prevent exposure from people whose vaccines have worn off. A study by New South Wales researchers have found almost 80% of the whooping cough cases analysed were caused by mutated bacteria that had stopped producing pertactin, one of the 3 key proteins targeted by the vaccine. Clearly, it is a red light in terms of how well the vaccination works, said Peter McIntyre, study author and director of the National Centre for Immunisation Research and Surveillance of Vaccine-Preventable Diseases. Immunisation is still the best and only way to protect against the most extreme cases of the disease, but the effectiveness is waning and the bug mutation could be contributing to the vaccine wearing off faster. The vaccines aren't even good for you. I feel sorry for all those little kids that went and got those, because now they're getting a deadly cough. More airplane needed for weather modification in Indonesia. Jakarta. The Agency of Assessment and Application of Technology required at least 15 airplanes to optimally implement the weather modification technology across Indonesia, an official said here on Wednesday. We now have only 5 airplanes, 3 of which are available for weather modification. The other 2 are rented out for Pioneer Flight Service. Head of the Technical Management Unit of Artificial Rain of the BPPT, Heru Widodo, said here at a press conference on Wednesday. Weather modification. Oh man, all fits together. Oh, this one's good. CIA plane that sprayed chemtrail virus shot down in China. CIA plan to exterminate 90% of the human population. From reports circulating in the Kremlin, it is found that a US government aircraft piloted by CIA agents and carrying a cargo of swine flu viruses modified designed to be sprayed into the air was shot down near the Chinese Pudong, Shanghai, by a group of saboteurs who were thought to be part of the Israelite soldiers of the Mossad, thus trying to prevent a US attack on one of their bases located in Central Asia, particularly in the state of Kyrgyzstan. According to the articles in the Chinese press about this fact, the aircraft hit belonging to Aviant Aviation, a company linked to the CIA whose flight was operated by a former British military officer named Andrew Smith and registered in the Kingdom. Combined were killed 3 American CIA agents and injured 4 other people who have confirmed that they come from the United States, Indonesia, Belgium, and Zimbabwe. See, that was what I thought. Like everywhere, not just in Shanghai or wherever they were spraying, but when everyone got sick, it was because there was like a ton of chemtrails in the sky. I believe they were spraying this swine flu virus, and they're probably going to do it again. That's how everyone got sick, from the chemtrails. Real News Australia. Chinese drones to spy on Australia. Chinese manufacture programs Phantom drones with no-fly zones to protect Australian airports. Don't they look cute? One of the world's leading manufacturers of small commercial and hobbyist drones is introducing technology to prevent its unmanned aircraft from flying near 10 major Australian airports. It's announcing what it calls no-fly zones safety modifications. China-based DJI Innovations will modify software that provides satellite GPS guidance for its highly popular Phantom series unmanned aerial vehicles. The drones will be blocked from operating near 350 airports around the world by creating an electronic geofence around airports to reduce the risk of collision between drones and manned aircraft. Yeah, but you can still manually override them. What's a GPS going to do? Exclusive. Sources inside the BLM and Las Vegas Metro say feds are planning a raid on the Bundy home. As reported yesterday, hundreds of federal agents are still at the Bundy Ranch, and the area continues its status as a no-fly zone, despite major media reports that the Nevada Bureau of Land Management is retreating. The remaining activity that still surrounds the ranch illustrates a different scenario. CIA, MI6, and Turkey's rogue game in Syria. New claims say Ankara worked with the US and Britain to smuggle Gaddafi's guns to rebel groups. The US's Secretary of State John Kerry and its UN ambassador Samantha Power have been pushing for more assistance to be given to the Syrian rebels. This is despite strong evidence that the Syrian armed opposition are more than ever dominated by jihadi fighters similar in their beliefs and methods to Al-Qaeda. The recent attack by rebel forces around Latakia, northern Syria, which initially had a measure of success, was led by Chechen and Moroccan jihadis. So they're similar to the Al-Qaeda, and John Kerry wants to give them more assistance. Nice. Chinese troops could train in Australia. Prime Minister Tony Abbott has foreshadowed closer military cooperation and joint military exercises with China, and revealed President Xi Jinping has accepted his invitation to address both houses of Australian Parliament later this year. It says down here, "We had a very warm and constructive discussion last night," he told reporters on Saturday, the last day of his week-long visit to Japan, South Korea and Japan. Mr. Xi will visit Australia in November for bilateral meetings attached to his attendance at the G20 summit in Brisbane. Awesome. Chinese troops could end up exercising alongside the diggers in Australia's north, perhaps even in conjunction with US Marines. Wait a second. I thought America was against China. So what? Does that mean we have a fight in our own backyard? Damn. Send in the UN peacekeepers, pleads Ukraine as pro-Russian militias openly defied deadline to lay down guns. Ukraine's acting president yesterday urged the United Nations to send peacekeeping troops to eastern Ukraine, where pro-Russian gunmen kept up their rampage of storming and occupying local government offices, police stations, and a small airport. Car crash. ABC News. April 15th. Huge hit to jobs and growth as automotive manufacturing ends in Australia, warns new study. The closure of car manufacturing could cost Australia nearly 200,000 jobs and $29 billion in lost economic output, a new report predicts. The report from the National Institute for Economic and Industry Research says nationwide impacts will extend far beyond the core-making regions of Victoria and South Australia. Victoria will be hardest hit by the closure of the car plants when first Ford and General Motors, Holden and Toyota stop manufacturing in Australia all over the next 3 years. The study estimates that up to 100,000 direct and indirect jobs will be lost in Victoria when the plants shut their doors. Man, there's those cuts. Down goes the economy. Go away. This is cool. Scientists have found that memories may be passed down through generations in our DNA. New research from the Emory University School of Medicine in Atlanta has shown that it is possible for some information to be inherited biologically through chemical changes that occur in DNA. During the tests, they learned that mice can pass on learned information about traumatic or stressful experiences, in this case a fear of the smell of cherry blossom, to subsequent generations. That's like, they say a little bit about it in the beginning of this.
Assassin's Creed fans, fire up your animus because it turns out that our memories are passed down in our genes. Anthony here for D-News, joined again by Tara Long, who reviewed Assassin's Creed 4 on Rev3 Games, and also hosts Hard Science with me, and is also my buddy.
Oh, yeah.
Hey, buddy.
Thanks for having me back.
Absolutely. So tell us, for those who are not familiar, what Assassin's Creed is about.
Right, so the core idea behind Assassin's Creed is that you're reliving the memories of people in the past because their memories are actually stored inside of their DNA.
Which is actually a pretty sci-fi idea because your memories are stored in the cells of your brain, and when you die, your brain dies, and those memories die with you. But some new research from the Emory University School of Medicine says that certain memories can be passed on genetically from generation to generation.
Right, and it's important to note that memories aren't stored in any one particular region of your brain. They're sort of distributed throughout the whole structure, which is good because then if one part of your head gets destroyed, you don't just immediately forget everything.
But your DNA is associated with physical attributes, not memories. So how are these things passed on? It turns out that it is specific types of information that can be inherited. Phobias.
Yes, so this team trained mice to basically fear the smell of cherry blossoms using electric shocks. So
It's the most sadistic
I
thing
know,
I can
it's
think.
horrifically
Cherry
cruel.
blossoms.
They smell the flower, then they get an electric shock, and then after that whole experiment, they let the mice breed, and it turns out their offspring were actually also afraid of the scent from birth without having been exposed to the smell of cherry blossoms or electric shocks or bad experience. They just fear the smell of them.
And it all comes down to epigenetics, which we talked about before. Some of your genes can change how they express themselves based on your life. Long-term stress, for example, can flip switches in your genes that can make you mentally ill or physically ill. You can check out the video we did about it for more details.
Yeah, what's interesting here is that the DNA responsible for sensitivity to the smell of cherry blossoms was actually more active in the sperm of the mice that were shocked. Those mice had a stress response to cherry blossoms, which then changed the expression of their DNA, and then they passed that changed DNA onto their children.
So what did that do? Well, our brains change and restructure all the time based on what happens to us, and the shocked mice showed changes to the areas of their brain that detect odors, and their children were born with those changes already in place.
Right, so a lot of our instinctive behavior, how we react to danger and stress and stuff like that, could actually be genetic. We're all sort of born with a natural aversion to things that are harmful or dangerous to our parents, and that sort of comes back around to us and gives us a little bit of a survival advantage.
Yeah, but not.
Interesting. Interesting. WealthyDebates.com. Martial law. Obama confiscates National Guard helicopters from all 50 states. As if the Obama administration's purchase of more than 2 billion rounds of ammunition and nearly 3,000 urban tanks, along with their unprecedented and highly illegal domestic spying programs, was not enough to convince you that the federal government is about to suspend the Constitution once and for all. The man who once vowed to run the most transparent administration in history has just rather inexplicably ordered the U.S. Army to seize every Apache attack helicopter currently in use by the National Guard. Man, those things have like 30mm chain guns on them. They shoot ballistic and Hellfire missiles. And he's confiscating them all. That's pre-martial law for you. That should be huge, man. That story should be huge. RT. Google buys a web-beaming solar drones capable of flying for years at a time. A Google spokesperson announced Monday that the tech giant has purchased Titan Aerospace, snatching the New Mexico-based drones developers from Facebook, which has long been rumored to be interested in such an acquisition deal. I don't know, it's kind of cool, but weird. April 15th. Free trade agreement. China wants to send workers into Australia. China is demanding it be allowed to import Chinese workers into Australia to work on projects funded by Chinese investors under a proposed free trade agreement, sparking concerns with the Abbott government of backlash, according to reports. An Australian Financial Review report says that the government is resisting the move and is seeking a way around the issue by targeting 457 visas towards projects that the Chinese want to build that require skills that cannot be attained in Australia, as it pushes to land a free trade deal with China at the Group of 20 meeting in November. I heard it was something from one of my mates. One of the reports he saw, something about maybe 40,000 workers coming in. Like, this is the TPP trade shit. Taking over our jobs, taking over Australia. We're not going to have any jobs. What's this one? Oh yeah. National Affairs. April 16th, Aussies killed in US drone strike in Yemen. 2 Australian citizens have been killed in a US airstrike in Yemen in what is the first known example of Australian extremists dying as a result of Washington's highly controversial use of predator drones. The Australian has been told the 2 men, believed to be in their 20s, were killed in a predator drone strike on 5 al-Qaeda militiants traveling in a convoy of cars in Hadramaut in eastern Yemen on November 19th. Wow, that's an old story, but still. Thanks, America. Don't start killing our guys. Yep. RT. Military seized airfield controlled by anti-government activists in eastern Ukraine. April 15th. Ukrainian troops have seized an airfield in the city of Kramatorsk as part of a security operation against anti-government activists in the eastern part of the country. Activists claim several people were wounded. That'd be Ukraine going against the pro-Russian. This will bring the Russians in there. And then war. Cold War resparked. Up to 295 still missing in South Korea ferry capsized. South Korean officials said as many as 295 people were still unaccounted for after a ferry carrying 477 passengers and crew capsized off the south coast on Wednesday. Some pictures. It's going down. Look at that. How did it capsize though? How did it capsize? That's a big question. Why did it sink? Why? The coming Chinese EMP attack upon America. I have a neighbor that can literally build or fix anything. He has converted most of his electrical output on his house to solar. He has the ability to totally get off the power grid, but our energy provider, Arizona Public Service, will not permit him to do so. APS has threatened to take action against anyone who attempts to go off the grid. Nobody is going to be allowed to be outside the control of the Communist Chinese as they prepare to take control over the entire energy grid by controlling solar power. Remember, we owe the Chinese a lot of money and they are here to collect. Signs are just everywhere for America. And again, the Chinese are acquiring large chunks of land in communities all over America. It's April 1st. Has the United States ever experienced a time when a foreign nation has attempted to buy up so much of our land all at once? As you'll read about in this article, the Chinese are on a real estate buying spree all over America. In fact, in some cases, large chunks of land are actually being given to them. Yes, you read that correctly. China is on the way to becoming the dominant landowner in the entire country, and that is starting to alarm a lot of people. Do we really want a foreign superpower to physically own so much of our territory? Get ready, America. And even more. WND reported on Friday, April 18th. Biggest land grab in the history of the world. Washington, in a move lawmakers and farmers are calling the biggest land grab in the history of the world, the Environmental Protection Agency is requesting the jurisdiction over all public and private streams in the United States that are intermittent, seasonal, and rain independent. The EPA and the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers in late March jointly released a proposed rule, Waters of the United States, in an effort to clarify which streams and wetlands are protected under the Clean Water Act. A statement issued by the EPA says the proposed rule will benefit businesses by increasing efficiency in determining coverage of the Clean Water Act. Some lawmakers strongly disagree. Biggest land grab in history. And here's another article on the same thing. Oh. Trying to close things. Gosh. Alert. Obama Gestapo plans largest land grab in the history of the world. April 16th. It's the same thing. Get ready. America, wake up. Tell people about this stuff. Obama urged to enforce ban on importing military-style firearms. About 80 House members wrote a letter to President Obama Wednesday urging him to renew enforcement against the import of military-style semi-automatic firearms. Under the 1968 Gun Control Act, they write, the President has broad authority to prohibit guns and ammunition from being imported into the country unless they are generally recognized as particularly suitable or readily adaptable to sporting purposes. More gun control. More gun control. Turkish military assists attack on Christians. Washington. The Turkish military is actively assisting foreign-backed Sunni Islamic militias who are routing Christian Armenians from the northwestern Syrian town of Kasab. Syrian and Lebanese sources told WND. The Armenians are being forced to seek refuge in the Syrian city of Latakia. While there have been numerous reports of Islamic militant groups such as the Al-Qaeda affiliated Jabhat al-Nusra and the ISIS attacking Syrian Christians. The attack on Armenian Christians in Syria by Turkey has brought back memories of the Ottoman Turk attacks on Christian Armenians. Turkish attacks beginning in 1915 and lasting until 1923 killed more than 1.5 million people, being regarded by many experts as genocide. Holy fuck. Before its news, American Spring Insider, Bloodbath coming to DC in May, resigns in disgust. According to this brand new video just released by Before It's News, friend PP Simmons at Operation American Spring Insider has just resigned in absolute disgust after warning that a bloodbath is coming to Washington DC in May, calling for the ouster of President Obama and at least 6 others, and promising not to leave Washington, D.C. until Obama and the others are removed from office. Operation American Spring began sending out eviction notices and articles of impeachment to everyone in Congress and requested 6 members of Congress to leave D.C. immediately. Today we've learned that Karen Smith, the liaison between OAS and the media, just dropped a bombshell on all of us by warning that while she thought that it was a protest, that this protest will be peaceful, she had just learnt that this event will be anything but peaceful. Karen warns that instead of peaceful, armed militia will be surrounding DC. She also warns that all it takes is one agitator in this crowd, even if that agitator is the member of the Blackwater or another federal agency, for all hell to break loose. Get ready, America. Volcanic red alert issued for Idaho by EMERCOM scientists. A warning issued today by the Ministry of the Russian Federal for Civil Defenses, Emergencies and Elimination of Consequences of Natural Disasters has advised the World Organization of Volcano Observations that a red alert status for the level of Bora Peak Mountain in Idaho may be warranted in the coming weeks due to increased volcanic seismic activity detected by both ground and satellite observations. That's right next to Yellowstone, actually. Police testing live Google Earth to watch crime as it happens. In Compton last year, police began quietly testing a system that allowed them to do something incredible: watch every car and person in real time as they ebbed and flowed around the city. Every assault, every purse snatched, every car speeding away was on record, all thanks to an Ohio company that monitors cities from the air. And this is the supposed company. Persistent Surveillance Systems. Pretty insane. NATO announces it will deploy on Russia's border. NATO boss Anders Fogh Rasmussen has announced the military alliance will move troops up to the Russian border in response to resistance by eastern Ukrainians to an operation by the coup government to shut down the secession movement in Donetsk, Slaviansk, and other areas of the country. Troops moving in. About to go off. Last one. I'm sorry it's been a big video. ABC becomes first Western broadcaster to go China-wide. The ABC has won permission from the Chinese government to have its Australian network content made available to the entire Chinese population, the most extensive access afforded to any Western broadcaster. I just jumped to this one bit down the bottom here that I saw. It said, Rupert Murdoch tried for 20 years to secure broadcast rights in China through Star China TV, but never succeeded. His 21st Century Fox sold its minority stake in the broadcaster Star China TV in January after his ambitions were frustrated by censorship and limits on foreign investment. I just had to read that because someone I saw posted or commented on something, and he was like, "Oh, Rupert Murdoch would be pissed" or something. I don't know. But yeah, that's all my stuff today. It's a lot of information, but I hope you liked it, and yeah, hit like, subscribe, enjoy.